Everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's Christina here. I hope you're having the most amazing day ever. If you are new around here, my name is Christina. I'm a naturopath, herbalist, life coach, as well as carnivore, and I have been a carnivore for about 2.5 years now. So I get bunches of questions that come up in my clinic, but also come up on my YouTube channel. And one of the ones that came up today was talking about eczema. And I've also just had a client who has got eczema as well. So I thought, perfect time to do a video on eczema and actually have a little bit of a chat about that with you guys and share some information with you. So when it comes to eczema, or any of these particular conditions, like ultimately, a lot of the root cause is fairly similar, not always, but there are some really common themes and really some common threads that take place when it comes to looking at some of these health issues. And so when it comes to eczema, one of the things that I generally come back to, and I'm looking at multiple different things, so I'm just giving you a general synopsis, not the detailed, intricate version of it, but the general synopsis is that the skin is a part of what we would call the accessory detox organs. And so everybody has at least 5 of these, and I say at least because women have an extra one. That's your period. And so those 5 accessory detox organs are the skin, the lungs, the bowels, the immune system, and the kidneys. I had to think for a second there. So those 5 accessory detox organs are accessories. And what that means is that they have a primary function, and then they have a secondary function, which is kind of like this emergency thing that we use, this emergency tool, this get out of jail sort of emergency that we use. So for example, when it comes to the skin, which is, essentially where eczema is going to present itself, that individual likely has some type of weakness in that area. Like it might be an area it's particularly genetically weak for them. So for other people, it might be their lungs, and that's when they might be experiencing things like asthma. For other people, it might be their kidneys. And if that's the case, they're more likely to experience things like urinary tract infections, high blood pressure, all of those types of things that might be connected to the kidneys in that in that experience for them. And so when somebody comes to me with eczema, I'm going to ask them a bunch of questions. And a lot of those questions are going to be things like, do you know if you're a vaginal birth or a C-section baby? Do you know if you're breastfed or formula fed? What medications were you given when you were a baby? Did you have recurring ear infections? Did you have a whole bunch of other sicknesses that were going on? Did you get a lot of antibiotics, etc.? I'm going to ask a bunch of those types of questions. I'm also going to ask things where I'm looking for opportunities where they have maybe been exposed to toxins. So it could be that they live in a house that's full of mold. It could be that they have had, a lot of dental fillings. It could be, a whole bunch of different things that could feed into that, like the food that they're eating, the air that they're breathing, the environment that they're in. So for example, if they're in a home that is highly emotionally toxic, that can present itself as physical issues within the toxicity sort of spaces. I'm going to ask them a bunch of questions because I kind of want to look at like, where has that come from? What are the indications? Like, when did we first start to see this presenting? Now, the reason that I'm asking those questions is to look for what are some of the drivers that have contributed to that, but so that we can then, remove those drivers, reduce them, etc. But the ultimate goal is to look at what's actually going on. And so in the case of these accessory organs, what happens is that they have a primary function. So in the case of the skin's job is to keep your innards in and the outside out. Like it's designed to defend you, protect you, and keep the things that are meant to be inside of you, and the things that are meant to be outside of you, outside of you. That's its primary function. It does a whole bunch of other things as well, like managing, helping to manage your temperature and, regulate that sort of stuff. It's got a bunch of other things, but its primary functions is keep the insides in, the outside out, and defend you. That's its primary function. Then it has all these other secondary ones. Now, when it comes to a situation like eczema, what predominantly happens, and it's not always the case, and this is where individual checking and care is important. What often is happening is that when I go through people's stories of like what has happened for them, where they've come from, their family history, genetic mutations that they might have, etc., foods that they're eating, environments that they're living in, what we'll see is some common themes. And the common theme that tends to take place there is that there is this overloading of the liver. So I think about the liver as Larry the liver or Lucy the liver. Lucy I kind of like as well because it reminds me of the Lucille Ball. If you ever watched I Love Lucy, Lucille Ball is at she's like, I'm getting a job. And she goes and has a job at a chocolate factory. And her sole job at the chocolate factory is to put the chocolates that are on the conveyor belt and sort them into their boxes, like where they're actually meant to go. And it starts off slow and fine. And she's like, yep, I can manage this. I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. This is easy. I've got this. But then they start to crank up the machine. And as they start to crank up the machine, she starts to not have this. There's too many chocolates and she can't get them in all the boxes and all of the stuff. And then so eventually she starts shoving chocolates down her bra and like in her mouth and like, everywhere she can manage to shove some chocolate, she's trying to shove the chocolates so that she's doing the job. And that kind of reminds me of the liver. So whether it be Larry the liver or Lucy the liver, it's up to you. You pick what works for you. But imagine you've got this liver and it is a beautiful organ. It's designed to keep you alive, hence the liver. It's designed to keep you alive. And it does a whole bunch of different things within our body. And one of those things that it does is detoxification. It helps to remove the things that are in our body that are toxic to us and package them up and either. So it's got two phases. And it does this thing of like, okay, you're good enough that we can just recycle you. So it does this remetabolization where it's just like fixing something. So, the molecule that it's using is just whacking back on the thing that is missing. So it might be a tyrosine that has been broken off because that was used in a process that's happened. So it just pops that back on. This molecule looks good enough to reuse. So it's recycling it. Or it goes, oh, you've been around the farm a little bit. We need to break you down. And that's when it metabolizes it. So it breaks it down. And then it, is going to remove the parts that it can't recycle. It's going to remove those and put them into the waste. So it gets dumped into the gallbladder. So it packages that up with bile, puts that in the gallbladder. Then when you eat some fat, the gallbladder squeezes that out, dumps that bile and toxins that are packaged up with it into the digestive system. Hence, you go to the toilet and you poop it out, predominantly. We don't poop out all of it because there is this recycling process that happens. And we actually reabsorb some of those toxins that we're trying to get at. And so in the case of somebody who has got one of their accessory detox organs has a problem, then often what is likely the case is that the liver is overloaded. So remember that picture of Lucille Ball who's like, sorting the chocolates and she's doing it quite fine. And then they turn the conveyor belt up and then she starts to struggle. The liver gets to that point where it is struggling. It's like trying to do all the jobs of packaging and recycling and getting rid of things and, metabolization and all of its other roles that it's got to do. And it's like, oh my gosh, I cannot get on top of this. And so it goes, yo, accessory detox organs, can you help me out? And so it's going to call out to the skin. In the case of eczema, somebody's, experiencing eczema, it's calling out to the skin. It's like, yo, skin, I am flat chat here. Can you come and take care of some of this stuff? I am so flat chat busy. Can you help me out, bro? And the skin's like, yeah, sure, bro, send it over. And the skin then starts to do the processes of elimination via the skin and starts to push those toxins out. And as it pushes those toxins out, what it does is it changes the pH of the actual skin. And when the pH of the skin starts to change, that calls in different bacteria. So we have this bacteria, we've got a microbiome on the outside of our body as well as on the inside. And so the microbiome on the outside of the body, if we're healthy and well, is quite good, robust, and full of beneficial bacteria that are doing great things for us. There might be some pathogens, but the beneficial bacteria keep it in bay. They're called opportunistic bacteria. They're looking for an opportunity for things to go in their favor so that they can take over. And so the beneficial bacteria generally keep them at bay. And when they keep them at bay, they do the job that they're meant to do. However, when the food source that comes out through the skin from a pH that is out of balance, those opportunistic bacteria start to get fed. And as they start to get fed, they start to grow stronger and more prolific. So they start to take over. And what they actually do is a whole bunch of different things. one of which they create a breeding ground for bacteria to actually take over and cause problems. The other part of that is they release acids from themselves, which then create, for somebody who's got eczema, for example, they then create these micro tearing abrasions that happen on the skin. So it's like they've got these hundreds of little tiny cuts that are there. So like when you've had a paper cut, it's quite hurty when that happens. Well, they've got all these little tiny ones that are actually happening on the outside of their skin, which makes their skin irritated and itchy and sore, and really uncomfortable within their skin because it's dry. Sometimes it can crack and bleed, and sometimes it can become infected with those pathogenic bacteria. And so that scenario of the liver being overworked, sending things out to the skin to do, the skin doing that process, is often the end result is eczema when it's happened on a long-term basis. So the skin can do the job of supporting the detoxification system sporadically. It's meant to do it sporadically. And we want it to do that. So for example, if you had something that was highly toxic to you, all of your accessory detox organs would be jumping in to try and help you. So your skin would break out in a rash because it's pushing those toxins out. You might have trouble breathing, or you're breathing really fast. You might be urinating a lot because you're trying to pee out a lot of those toxins. You might find that you get diarrhea and you're pooping out those toxins. Like, your immune system is irritated and inflamed because your immune system is jumping in to try and help you and save you. So we want that to happen in emergency situations. But the thing is, it's not meant to happen ongoing and for prolonged periods of time. It's meant to happen in emergency situations where you've had something that is not good for you, that is going to harm you, and it needs to get rid of that quickly. But the problem is we've created a lifestyle where we consistently live in a way that is consistently poisoning us, that is consistently bringing toxins in and bringing more toxins in than our liver is able to deal with. And so therefore the accessory organs have to jump in and do those jobs more consistently and more regularly. And doing it over long periods of time is when the body starts to get confused, because it's like, well, I think I was like skin and I was doing this job, but now I've been doing this job and kind of forgotten what my job is. And so it gets confused. And we see that in the immune system, for example, where we see people with histamine issues, or they've got mast cell activation, or they've got SIRS, or they've got autoimmune diseases that are taking place. The immune system's been doing the job of detoxification from an accessory perspective, but not sporadically, ongoingly, consistently over prolonged periods of time. And so the reverse engineering of that is, one, we do some topical stuff when it comes to eczema to maintain comfort, to keep the patient comfortable, right? And then what we want to do is the inside out work, like the long-term results come from the inside out work. And this is where it can be challenging, because this question and me doing this video stemmed from somebody saying that they had been doing carnivore, they were doing great, they thought their skin was getting better, and now suddenly it's starting to go in the opposite direction. And what's likely to have happened is that the body is starting to release more toxins. And as it's releasing more toxins, the liver's got to do more work, and then it's going to push that out into those accessory organs. And so for me, the reverse engineering process is going, okay, so I know that this is what's happening. One, we want to manage the symptoms so that the patient is comfortable, so that they're comfortable, they can live their life, and they can tolerate it. But the other part of that is we want to come back to, this is less about a skin problem and more about a liver detoxification problem. How do we support this process of detoxification more efficiently and more effectively so that it doesn't need to call out to those accessory organs and use them as a pathway to get on top of it? And so there are a couple of things that I would recommend people doing. Now, depending on their health and what's going on for them, will alter what I generally suggest. Now, in the case of eczema, one of the things that I'm going to suggest is generally having bicarb baths. So having a bath with, a fourth of a cup or half a cup of bicarb soda in it helps to balance the pH of the skin. So it helps to reduce some of the aggravation that happens with those pathogenic bacteria, changing and altering the pH of the skin. And so having a bicarb bath actually helps to balance the pH of the skin. If you can tolerate it, so some people, depending on how significant their eczema is, will depend on what they can tolerate. So if you can tolerate it, adding in some Epsom salts to that. So half a cup to a full cup of Epsom salts in that bath, soak for 20, 30 minutes in a comfortably warm temperature. Like it doesn't have to be super hot, like warm enough that you're comfortable when you're enjoying the bath. Soak in it for 20, 30 minutes. And what will happen is through the process of osmosis, the magnesium is going to enter into the skin and the toxins are going to leave the skin. And so there's this reverse process that happens through osmosis where we bring in this nutrient that we need and we let go of these toxins that we don't need. And then that can be one way. If you are around an ocean, then going and walking and putting your feet on the sand and putting your feet in the water is also going to help that process. If it's sunny like it is here in Australia and it's warm enough to swim, go and swim at the ocean. It can be stingy and hurty, and you might only last for 5 minutes to start with. But the more regularly you do it, the longer you'll be able to actually last. And the part of that is to remember that, you know, what's happening is you're kind of healing the skin at the same time. Now, those with eczema often generally are going to also have a zinc deficiency because zinc is one of the primary nutrients that the skin is actually going to need to be able to do the processes of healing. And so from a food-based perspective, things like egg yolks are really great, but oysters, if you can get yourself to have some oysters, they're a great source of zinc. Now, one of the things that I generally will get people to do is get some oysters, whether they're fresh, raw, or whether they're canned in, you know, some ideally spring water would be my best, but you know, you can't always access that. Get what you can get. Blend it up into a paste and then add that to your food. So some people can't come at oysters because they're like, oh my gosh, it's so gross. But if you can cook them, blend them in with your food, you won't even know that they're actually there, and you're adding some zinc to your actual food as well. Or you can just eat them if you like them. I actually really like it. So it's kind of a treat for me to actually eat them. And so part of it is figuring out how do you get more of that in for you. Egg yolks, all of your meat's going to have zinc in it, but you might need some extra, especially because that's an area that you might be significantly deficient in. And so you might then need to take a supplement as well, just to keep you caught up. Now, that's a decision that, you know, I usually make with my clients as to what we want to do and how they want to do it and what's going to be the most effective and efficient way for them to do it at this point in time, matching their condition with their lifestyle and what's going on for them too. So zinc is one of those things. The other thing that I often will use for clients is a binder. So a binder is a tool that we might use to help increase the amount of toxins that we get out. So if you remember, I briefly said that we actually often recycle some of the toxins that our liver is trying to get out. So the liver packages up those toxins with bile, puts them in the gallbladder. Then when we eat fat, the gallbladder squeezes, takes all of that and dumps it in the digestive system. Now, bile is a really precious resource for our body, so it doesn't want to actually just lose it. So it does reabsorb it. And in that process, what happens is we end up reabsorbing about 90% of those toxins that we're trying to get rid of. So anywhere between 90 and 95%. And so that means that what we are eliminating and actually getting rid of every time we're doing that cycle is only about 5 to 10% of the toxins that our body's trying to get rid of. And so we can amplify that and increase that by actually adding in a binder. Now, one of my favorite binders has been removed from access with Inside of Australia. So my favorite binder that I have used for the last 3-4 years has been Toxaprevent. And I have used this with my clients. I've used it with myself. I use it with people all of the time. But the TGA, so the Australian Goods Therapeutic Goods and Services Act, Association, have actually removed that from sale inside of Australia. Now, listen to the word sale inside of Australia. That doesn't mean that you can't buy it. Doesn't mean that you can't access it. You just can't buy it inside of Australia. You can still buy it from overseas. So you can still buy it from places like Amazon. You can still buy it from Germany. You can still buy it and have it sent in. It just is you cannot buy it with inside of Australia. Now, the reason that I like Toxaprevent versus other things is that it's what we call a discriminatory binder. So it binds selectively. So it doesn't bind with everything. It binds only with the things that have got the right molecular charge. And so it binds selectively. And so therefore, your nutrients are going to be safe and secure, and you don't have to worry that you're losing much or many of those. Like you may lose a little bit of magnesium, but everything else is pretty much safe. And so that's one of the things that I like. The other part of that is that it has been cleaned. So basically it is volcanic ash. So it is volcanic ash that has been collected, and then it's been put through a magnetic type of machine that actually pulls the toxins out of it. So all of the receptors are available to draw out toxins inside of your body. And so you're getting the most bang for buck when it comes to actually using that product. Now, we can't access that inside of Australia now, so we have to look outside. And we have to look at maybe some alternatives. Now, some other alternatives for that are zeolite or Klonopin, which are both volcanic ash as well, but they aren't cleaned. So that may mean that, let's say that volcanic ash was exposed to lead. Well, we're not going to be able to get more lead outside of your body simply because all the receptors are full. So, it's not quite as effective. Then we can turn to things that we would call non-discriminate binders. So a non-discriminate binder is something like clay and something like activated charcoal. So activated charcoal is quite an easily accessible one. You can get it from most chemists, health food shops, etc. It's available in all sorts of different places. You can buy it online. It's easy to access. If you're really keen, you could make it at home. But when it comes to activated charcoal, it is a non-discriminate binder, which means it binds with everything. And so you can't use it as a non-discriminate binder every day of the week, whereas you can use a discriminatory binder every day of the week. And so with the non-discriminate binders, I usually will only recommend people do them a maximum of 3 days within a week, so that you are then giving your body the opportunity to continue to build up its resources on those other days. And so you also, on those other days, want to make sure that you're having really highly nutrient-dense food so that you're getting as much nutrients as you possibly can to actually support that process. And the way that you make these binders, whether they're discriminatory or non-discriminatory, work better is to make sure that you eat plenty of fat when you're actually having them, because the fat is the instigator for the gallbladder to actually dump those toxins into the digestive system. Now, if you don't have a gallbladder, it still works, but it comes from the liver as opposed to sitting in the gallbladder waiting to be dumped. And there's some extra tips and tricks for people who don't have a gallbladder, but I'll talk about that on another video because I'm sure this is going to be long enough as it is. And so one, we're going to support detoxification. So Epsom salt baths, I talk about it from seas and trees type of thing. If you're around a sea, go and hang out at the sea, the beach, like breathing in salty air helps to detoxify the lungs. Stepping in salty water helps to detoxify the skin. It's really great for your immune system. You've got the vitamin D that's coming in from the sun, assuming that it's sunny. That's all going to help with detoxification. It's going to help with supporting your immune system and all sorts of other great stuff. Trees. If you're not around seas, maybe you're around trees. So in Japan, we would call it tree bathing, where, they would go and lay in a place that's full of trees, like a park, and actually just breathe in the air, because that helps to detoxify the body. And if you put a thin sheet on the ground, your ions, the negative ions in your body, are actually going to move through your body into the ground, and you're going to get some positive coming back in. So you're going to rebalance the ions within your body. And so that's another way of actually helping to support detoxification. Now you can do that process of earthing, which is like laying on the ground and allowing the ions to neutralize within your body. You can do that with earthing mats. So you can buy an earthing mat, or you can buy an earthing mattress sheet. There's a whole bunch of products out there that you can use to actually help you do that. So earthing is one of those ways. Sunning is one of those ways, making sure you're getting good quality sunlight on a regular basis to actually help with the processes of detoxification. Drinking clean water, making sure that your water is of the highest quality that you can possibly get. And, there's a whole bunch of different ways that you can do that with water filters and so on, etc. And then, generally looking at removing things like products from your system. So if you're using dishwashing liquid, or you're using like laundry detergent, shampoos, soaps, toothpaste, etc., that you're getting as clean as you possibly can, so that you're reducing the amount of toxins that you're actually being exposed to and that you're bringing into your body as well. And so that's going to have an impact on your detoxification pathways. And so that's something to think about and consider in the whole journey as well. But when it comes to the original question of like this flare happening, some of that happens as we release fat cells. We're going to open the fat cell up, and we're going to release the toxin that was in that fat cell, and that's got to go somewhere. And so that is where we need to make sure that we're supporting our detox pathways by breathing in good, clean air, drinking good, clean water, exercising, getting in the sun, doing detox baths, doing all the different things that we can use by making sure we're eating good amounts of fat even to help us do the processes of detoxification more efficiently and successfully. Now, the other thing, the last thing that I'll add to this is that for some people, this is often an indication that they might have the MTHFR gene mutation. And if that's the case, we want to test things like their homocysteine levels to check, how is your body functioning? Have you got enough B vitamins to do the processes of detoxification and support that system? We also might encourage you to eat some liver as well. For me, that's going to depend on what's going on for you and your health and how you respond to it as to what pathways and what decisions are actually good ones for you individually. But that is it in a nutshell of what's happening when somebody has got eczema. And it is very generalistic. So this is not medical advice for you. It is very generalistic to give you a bit of an overall picture of what might actually be taking place for you as you come to try and understand how you then might be able to support yourself as you move through these processes. All right, that's it for me. If you have any questions, pop it below. Remember to like and subscribe. I'd love to see you here again. And I look forward to chatting again soon. All right, bye for now. See you later.